Listen, man, I know you guys keep trying to say that I'm jinxing the Steelers with how I am talking about the Steelers' opponents going into these last couple weeks. How I talked about the Colts, how I talked about the Cowboys, and said, yeah, there's no reason the Steelers should lose these games. These are great matchups in every facet. Whenever you look at Steelers' run defense versus the Colts' run offense, whatever facet of each of these teams' games that we went up against, I liked us in the matchup. I thought there was no reason why we should have lost either of those last two games, and obviously we did. So some of you guys are saying I'm jinxing the Steelers because I'm not giving the opponents enough respect. Well, I don't really think this is the week where I'm going to turn it around, because if you look at the Raiders, they can't pass. Minshew, he's a gritty guy, as Tomlin described. He's got some moxie. He's got some savvy to him. So he could put up some yards, but he's also a turnover machine. Leads the league in picks. This will be the second quarterback in the last 3 weeks that has led the league in picks. Anthony Richardson had 6. So I guess the league lead in picks is still at 6 through the course of 3 weeks because Minshew has 6. He's leading the league. He's a turnover machine. They also can't run. Can't pass. Raiders also can't run. They're 30th in rush yards. No more Josh Jacobs. Instead, they have Zamir White. And I think he was out last week. I don't even know if he's going to be good to go this week. And that's their number one running back. And after him, it's kind of desolate in their running back room. Go to defense. The Raiders aren't good at stopping the pass. They've given up a 8 touchdown to 2 interception ratio thus far. They're also not good at stopping the run. They have given up a 4.9 yards per carry on average through the course of these 5 games. And they don't have any playmaking on defense. They're not good at turning the ball over. Okay, you guys are saying Aiden O'Connell is going to start. So I think that benefits the Steelers even more because I think he's worse than Gardner Minshew. Minshew's actually better than O'Connell. I think he can drive a team up and down the field a little bit. But as I said, he's very capable of having a bad turnover, a game-breaking turnover, as we saw last week with the pick 6 to Patrick Surtain. Aiden O'Connell, he's just, in my opinion, he's not as good. I think he's a safer pick than Minshew, but I don't think he's got as much talent or pop in his game. So, okay, thanks for clarifying. No Minshew, O'Connell. Good for the Steelers, even better for the Steelers. But back to the last point on the Raiders' defense. They're not good at playmaking. They don't turn the ball over. They only have 2 turnovers for the season. That's one of the worst in the league. But here's the caveat. I guess here's where I will give a little respect or a little bit of nuance here. If our offense and defense is anything like it looked these last 2 weeks, we can very much find a way to still lose this game. Even though the Raiders can't pass, they can't run, they can't stop the run, they can't stop the pass, and they can't turn the ball over. If we play like what we did these last 2 weeks, a loss is very much a possibility. Because if we get the penalties on offense, where we shoot ourselves in the foot, maybe get an occasional fumble or two, and the defense decides to let Jacoby Myers get open and go for 9 receptions, 100 yards, or Brock Bowers carve us up over the middle, or one of their running backs have a career day, then yes, I think the Steelers' curse of losing to garbage Raiders teams will be back, because right now, up to this point, it feels like the curse has been lifted. We've been 2-0 in the last 2 games against the Raiders. But I don't know if those were garbage Raiders teams that we went up against. I don't know if we really overlooked them. Maybe that's why we won, because the one was on Christmas Eve. That was the Franco Harris game. They had Derek Carr. They had Josh Jacobs. They still had Devonta Adams. I think Renfro was still there. Like, that was a halfway decent team. I think their record was around 500, and we needed to win to stay in the playoff race. So it's not like we overlooked the Raiders then. And then last year, that was on Sunday Night Football, and we needed a bounce back week for the offense because the offense looked dismal against Cleveland on Monday Night Football. We were 1-1. I think the Raiders 1-1 at the time, so there was no reason to really overlook them. They had Jimmy G at quarterback, Devontae Adams. So maybe that's why we went 2-0. It's the games that we think that are gimme wins going up against Bruce Gradkowski and like Terrell Pryor, and honestly, a game just like this with Aiden O'Connell at quarterback that we got to worry about, and we'll typically have a letdown game, a letdown performance, or a Tomlin loss type of performance. But this Raiders team, I'll say it again, they're not really that good. They beat the Ravens. That was a nice little win for them, week 2 of the season. But I wouldn't really say that they outplayed the Ravens. I think that was more of the Ravens giving the game to the Raiders. And they also had Devontae Adams at the time. Devontae's missed these last 2 games, and the Raiders are 0-2. So I think there's some sort of correlation there, because you're talking about Jacoby Myers now being your wide receiver 1 and then a bunch of no-name guys after him. That's not good. I don't think that's a great strategy to help Aiden O'Connell move the ball and get your offense points. They got Max Crosby. They got some players, Max Crosby. Brock Bowers is really good. He's probably already one of the best tight ends in the league right now. So Max Crosby, Brock Bowers. I think you could throw Spillane in there. Throw him in the mix as a guy that you know is going to do their job. We're very familiar with Robert Spillane. He's been a revelation out there with the Raiders. I think he's been definitely a positive pickup for them. And then Jacoby Myers, as I mentioned, he's solid, but you don't want him as your number 1. Again, though, I mean, if we play like we did these last 2 games, anything can happen. The other problem is, too, we got our own issues on offense and defense with some of these injuries. Lack of the edge rush depth with no Nick Herbig, Alex Highsmith on offense. We've been dealing with these O-line issues. At least we didn't get anyone new hurt from last week. So we're going to have actually some continuity from the offensive line going from week 5 to week 6. We should have the same unit out there. So that should help the O-line. Isaac Seumalo hopefully knocks the rust off from last week. And then running back, though, that hurts us. No Cordell Patterson, no Jalen Warren. So presumably we're going to have Najee Harris again with Shampling and Jonathan Ward. That's unfortunate. We should win this. And in fact, if you look at our schedule, this is probably going to be the easiest game we get for a minute on paper. Just on paper. Because after Raiders, it's going to be Jets-Giants. Jets got Aaron Rodgers. Giants have been playing way better than expected. Danny Dimes and Malik Neighbors, they got a connection going. Yeah, Brian Daboll got the Giants playing pretty hard right now. They just beat the Seahawks last week. They played the Cowboys tough on Thursday Night Football. So I don't think that's a gimme game or one that I'm going to be looking at sitting here and saying, yeah, we should win this. Like this is going to be easy. Like I have for this game and then even the 2 games prior against the Cowboys and the Colts. I think we'll give the Jets and the Giants more respect. Commanders, obviously, with Jaden Daniels coming off the bye. And then we got the whole AFC North for our final 8 games. 6 of our final 8 games is going to be the whole AFC North slate with Chiefs and Eagles. So this is probably going to be the easiest game that we have for the rest of our schedule. Unless the Browns keep Deshaun Watson in at quarterback. Those Cleveland games should be ones that we point to and be like, yeah, we should win. Those should be 2-0 games. But they might switch to Jameis Winston at that point, and then who knows? So I feel like we got to take advantage of this one and get to 4-2. It looks like Justin Fields is going to get the start this week, which I'm all for that, and we should definitely win with the Justin Fields. I think we could win with the Russell Wilson or Justin Fields, but I'm excited for Fields, man. He gets one more opportunity, and if he can ball out, we get to 4-2. Maybe it's his team. Maybe Tomlin sticks with Fields. Part of me thinks, though, like Fields is really going to have to ball out. It's going to have to be like 300, 3 touchdowns. He puts the team on his back, and we get the win for Tomlin to give the thumbs up for Fields to be the guy going forward. Because I just think he's got a certain amount of respect for Russell Wilson that unless it's Fields just going crazy, it's going to be Russell Wilson for week 7 going forward. Now, I hope I'm wrong because if Fields balls out, well, let's just say it's not even the 303 touchdowns. Let's just say it's 200, 2 touchdowns. Fields keeps it clean, no turnovers, nothing like that. I feel like it still should be Fields' team. I think you still got to roll with him. That's a 4-2 record. 5 of the 6 games, Fields has been really solid. And the one hiccup game against the Cowboys, he still gave you a would-be game-winning drive. If it wasn't for the defense giving up the 4th down at the end of the game against Dak and the Cowboys. If it wasn't for that, I think you throw that in another like positive performance by Fields. It wasn't his best, but to get a win, winning always buys you time. So if the Cowboys don't convert on that 4th down, we win. And let's say we win this Raiders game. Fields looks solid again. 5-1? Come on, man. Like, you stick with Fields. You stick with Fields. And I don't think 5-1 is that far of a cry from the 4-2 record we can legitimately have whenever week 6 is over. And if Fields looks good in the process, stick with him. But I do think, part of me thinks, just with how Tomlin operates and stuff and how he's been talking about this whole situation, part of me thinks Fields is going to have to go above and beyond to hold off Russ. I hope I'm wrong, though. I want to stick with Fields. I think it can do us a lot better for the long term if Fields proves to be the guy. And I think even this season, like if Fields can show that he can go toe-to-toe with big-time AFC quarterbacks, big-time games, big-time situations, then Fields gives you the higher ceiling than Russ. But that's the part we need to find out with Fields is like how consistent can you be in late game situations, got to have it moments, big time games against big time quarterbacks. Can you do that on a consistent basis? We got to see him have the really nice comeback against the Colts. We got to see him grind through an ugly game against the Cowboys when things weren't going right and still get us in a position to win. So I've been liking what I'm seeing from Fields for sure. But I feel like if he could show he could do that, his ceiling, his talent, all that stuff, I think will be better for the Steelers, not only this season, but long term than Russell Wilson. But you still got to give Russ his props. You still got to give Russ his due for the resume and who Russ is. But yeah, I say stick with Fields. And they're going to do that this week, but we'll see what he does against the Raiders. And if it's another positive performance, I would say just keep rolling with him, man. If it looks helter-skelter, if it looks like preseason Fields or Chicago Fields, then yeah, the door's open for Russ. I think that becomes a legitimate conversation. No doubt. But I got us winning. I didn't check the spread. I wish I would have checked the line before hopping on. I think we're favored, right? Let me know in the chat if we're favored. I think we're favored by a few points. Ethan Leach asked, was it Jalen Tolbert you said would go off for the Cowboys? No, I didn't think anyone was going to go off for the Cowboys. I really thought because of the Cowboys' lack of a run game and their only weapon in the receiver room being CeeDee Lamb, that we were going to make them one-dimensional and we were going to be able to double CeeDee Lamb, and then the other receivers weren't really going to go off. The only guy we would have to worry about was Jake Ferguson. But felt like a Patrick Queen or a Peyton Wilson would be able to handle him in coverage. I was wrong on pretty much all fronts in how the Steelers operate against the Cowboys offense. Dak picked us apart. They were able to gash us on the ground. CeeDee Lamb had a decent game, and then you had guys like Jalen Tolbert and Turpin go off against us too. Jake Ferguson had his like 60 or 70 yards. It was just bad all around. We got our turnovers, but I didn't think that was about us. I think that was more about Dak being Dak and making some boneheaded mistakes. Z32 says we need to have a 3-4-man receiver set to open up the run game because right now the run game is not it. I agree with you. And we did that a little bit in the latter half of the Colts game. And you saw things start to open up on the offense and Justin Fields start to cook. I agree with you, man. I think put more faith in Fields. I think it would open up the run game more because the defenses aren't going to be stacking the box. It's not going to be looking as predictable. And then you can maybe hand off out of the shotgun, little inside zone to Najee, do a little read option. Problem is, I feel like that would be or that would go more hand in hand with having Jalen Warren or Cordell Patterson out there. I think they're better receiver threats than Najee. Although Najee, he could be a receiver threat. It's just that Jalen Warren and Patterson have that extra dynamic, have that extra speed that would worry defenders. Justin 23 Bates says, sometimes I regret not taking Tyler Linderbaum in that draft. Just so tired of not having a bona fide stud on that O-line. Problem with our O-line this year is injuries. We did get Zach Frazier. I think he was the redemption pick. Who was the Lindenbaum draft, though? Was that Najee? I think it was. Because, yeah, the Pickett draft. Who are we talking about with the Pickett draft? That was like Devin Lloyd. I can't remember if there was any O-linemen. I think Linderbaum would have been instead of Najee. But I think, no. I could be wrong because Creed Humphrey was the Najee one. Creed Humphrey won in the second round. Linderbaum was Pickett. I think we made a good pick with Pickett, man. Hey, if you're trying to get your franchise quarterback, you got to take him. If you think he's the guy, quarterback's the most important position. We thought Pickett was the answer. Trevor Lott says, based off performance, I still think Fields is the guy. If defense wakes up earlier against the Colts, Pickens doesn't fumble and doesn't give up 450 yards, I think this isn't even a conversation to bring in Russ. Dude, 100%. We could be sitting here. Like, Fields isn't the reason why we're not at 5-0 right now. I think Fields has, for the most part, done everything possible to get us to 5-0. Pickens fumbling in the Colts game, Broderick Jones having the penalty in the Colts game, Tomlin not kicking it with Boz early in the game after that Broderick penalty. Like, you think right there, that's at least 6 points. If Pickens don't fumble, that's at least a field goal, but potentially a touchdown. Boz kicking that field goal after the Broderick penalty, whether or not the penalty happens or not. Like, it would have been an easier Boswell kick if Broderick didn't have the penalty. But if Tomlin still decided to give Boswell the chance, I think it would have been a 50-plus yarder, 57, 58 yarder indoors. Like, that's something I think we could hang our hat on that Boswell would make. That's 6 points right there. Like, Fields put us in position in that first half of the Colts game to put up points, even though the score going into half was 17-3. It wasn't Fields' fault. And those 6 points, potentially 10 points that we could have gotten in the first half would have went a long way. And then in the Cowboys game, I guess Fields had that weird fumble that got us into 3rd and long. But also, Isaac Seumalo, wasn't that the play Isaac Seumalo got pushed to the ground? Someone let up easy pressure, like in the snap of a finger, and got the Fields in an instant. And, yeah, he fumbled it. He got it back, but, yeah, then the series was over. I think that was, like, really his only, like, bad hiccup. I know he was more inaccurate than what we've seen this year, but we had like 5 receiver drops. And then ultimately, when push came to shove with Fields' final drive, he got us up 17-13. Defense just got to step on up from there on out. Defense got to lock down because we're paying the defense that type of money where you should have that faith in them to deliver in late game situations and stand up. But, yeah, they didn't. So I don't think Fields has really been the issue for us. He hasn't. The question is the offense better with Russ? I think that's what it comes down to. Does Russ help us more going forward than Fields? It's a good question. I think it's a fair question. But I don't want to take benching Fields for Russ lightly because there is a certain momentum. There is a certain vibe with Fields of this team. Like, that's why I kind of want to stick with him because he's playing good. He's playing legitimately good. I don't want to just take that for granted and throw Russ in there because there's no guarantee that he is going to be better than Fields. We get his resume and we know the clutchness that he brings to the table and all that. But if we still have these O-line issues for Russ, and we don't have another receiver outside of Pickens, and Jalen Warren and Cordell Patterson are still hurt. What's Russ going to do that Fields isn't right now? Trevor Loss, this is the last one, and then I'll get up out of here. Yes. What's your answer for the second edge rusher with Highsmith and Herbig out? Jacoby Windman, call him up from the practice squad. I think he's better than Jeremiah Moon. Outside of that, you got to sign someone, but I don't really think there's anyone out there you want to go out of your way to sign because Highsmith and Herbig should be back. These aren't long-term injuries. So I think we just got to deal with the situation as is and call up some of our depth guys. I think Jacoby Windman's the answer, though. That's who we got to put out there. Right. Thanks, everyone, for stopping through. Good show. Appreciate the support. Appreciate the conversation in the chat. Appreciate the takes. But until next time, which will be after Sunday's game, I'll be back for the post game. Until next time, stay chilling. Here we go, Steelers. Peace.